What is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of FitBizU. I'm your host, Jill Coleman. Welcome back. It is 2023 and excited to get into regular episodes. We were on hiatus for a couple of months, but we're back and I'm excited for this year. If you have not listened to the last episode, it was all about sort of a debrief from 2022, taking you behind the scenes, behind the curtain at Jill Fit and giving you some of the insights and the ways that we work and some of the things that we have done differently this past year and some of the things we're excited about for next year. But today I actually want to give you a little bit of a personal episode. I actually took 3 weeks of vacation in December. Now, one of the things that I promised myself last year was I was going to take 2 weeks off in July, and I was going to take the entire month of December off. Now, I wasn't able to take the entire month of December off because we did enroll for our Strategy and Scale Mastermind. But I wanted to share with you some really interesting lessons from my 3-week vacation. I actually went to Australia and New Zealand with my partner. And we literally left November 30th and we got back December 23rd. And it was a really, really fun trip. However, there were some challenges that I wasn't exactly ready for. And I want to share with you a little bit about that. Now, this is a little bit obnoxious. I'm going to say this, but as an entrepreneur, it's like really hard to take a vacation. And, it's not because we're workaholics, really. It's just more, especially if you have like a lifestyle business where you make your own schedule and things like that. Like for the most part, number one, you really love what you do, like you really love your clients, you really love what you do, or else you literally wouldn't be doing it. You don't have to have a business. You own a business because you want to. You do what you do in your business because you like it. So, sort of a forced time off feels a little bit tough. And also, this is the biggest challenge for me. And it's funny because I remember I actually did something like this in 2015. And I have even told this story before. So in 2015, December of 2015, I took that month off as well. And I said, I'm not going to do any client calls in December. And I didn't go anywhere. I remember December 2015, I was actually living in Santa Monica in LA, and I just stayed in town. And I remember being like, number one, I felt really bored. And number two, I felt really disengaged. And I almost like borderline felt depressed. Like I don't tend towards depression, but I definitely that was probably the closest I'd ever felt to depression. And I remember I've actually told that story before to where I won't ever do that. However, this past fall, we did 4 launches in 4 months. And the launches were big launches. They were successful launches and they took a lot out of me. And so by the time we were getting ready to go to Australia, I could not get on that plane fast enough. I was so excited. And I had earned it, right? I didn't feel bad about it. I felt like I did my due diligence on my clients. I felt like people had great results. I was definitely, a team was taking care of stuff at home. And people were like, oh yeah, you work so hard, you have to take a vacation, right? So it felt justified. But what was really interesting was after the first, I don't know, week or so, I started to get really antsy. And I want to share with you some of these lessons. And this is the first lesson, which is the same thing that I experienced 7 years ago and I forgot. But there is a balance between disengaging and novelty, right? You're being on vacation, we're traveling different places, we're in new locations, we're meeting new people, whatever. That novelty is great, and you're disengaged from work, but also there's no routine. And when you're engaged in your work, you're plugged in to the pulse of the business. You're plugged into the pulse of your clients, right? You're having client conversations all the time. You're in your DMs, you're on calls, you're talking to people. And engagement in your work puts you on the pulse of your work, right? It boosts your confidence because you're having conversations. It boosts your self-competency. You feel like, okay, I'm good at my job. And what happened was being sort of, quote, out of the loop with some of my clients almost put me in a scarce energy where I was kind of starting to feel like, God, do I even know what I'm talking about? It was a very strange thing. It's funny because I know it was that because the second I got back and started having conversation with my clients, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I feel plugged in. I feel engaged. It does not feel draining at all. In fact, I feel lifted up by it. So I do think that there's a balance. For us, the vacation was 3 weeks. I think that was a little too long. I think next time I'm going to do like 10 to 14 days. I think for me, that's going to be a perfect amount of time to refill my cup, which is my second lesson. I'll share here in a second, but to refill my cup, but to not get to that point where I start to get antsy. Like, what are my clients doing? Where's everyone at? Why, I need to feel like I'm in my business. I need to feel like I'm the pulse of the business, what's happening in the business with my team, I hadn't talked to my team for a couple of weeks. Like, what's going on with the team? What's going on with the clients? What's going on with people? And so that was definitely the first thing. The second important lesson was that you have to walk your walk, right? So if I talk about building a lifestyle business where you're not working around the clock, my goal for this past year, 2022, is to work about 30 hours a week. And I think I got pretty close to that. For next year, it's actually 25 hours a week. I'm going to try and work a little bit less next year. And so if I talk to my clients about how you need to take downtime, you need to refill your cup, you need to do things for you need to take self-care, right? All these kind of things. There were a lot of busy moms, a lot of people have other jobs, and you have to walk your walk, because not only is it not fair to like do one thing and preach something else, right? That you're out of integrity, but more importantly, it's not fair to my clients if I don't take the downtime. Not only to be an example of like health and, balance and holistic living, but if I'm not recharged when I come back to my coaching spaces, I'm an asshole. Like, literally, I'm a fucking asshole. And I don't say that. And if you've ever coached with me, you know that I'm very empathetic. I'm very patient. You guys might be surprised to hear that if you ever coached with me, but I'm very patient with my clients, especially my beginners. And one of the things I really pride myself on, especially our FBA calls, sometimes they'll go 2.5, sometimes 3 hours. And I have tons of space for that, tons of time for that. But I know if I'm starting to get like drained, like really like mentally and emotionally drained, which this last fall it certainly was, I know that sometimes it's a little bit harder for me to check some of that stuff, right? I might get a little short. I might feel a little impatient. I might get a little annoyed, whatever it is. That's not fucking okay. For my clients, it's not okay, right? And so if I'm showing up to my spaces not recharged, it's doing them a disservice. Like, I'm a fucking asshole. That's how I see it. And so I need to take time, not only for me, but for them. That's extremely important. And I think if you're a mom, maybe you can sort of, extend this to like your kids, your family, your partner, whatever. But it's really important to me. This is my second lesson, is you have to walk your walk. And, this past fall was a lot of output at Jill Fit. And it was, like I said, 4 launches in 4 months. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, to be honest, but we know that we're in like a growth phase at Jill Fit right now. These last 2 years have been like a major scaling and a major growth phase. So I know and I was ready for it again, right? I hadn't been in one of those growth phases for years. And so I was like, oh yeah, I forgot a lot of output, right? I forgot how much output it is. One of the things that I love that Brendan Burchard says is, he said, one of the hardest things about creating more success is some success. So when I was a personal trainer working 70 to 80 hours a week in the gym, I mean, that got to a point of like misery, right? That got to a point where like, I have got to fucking figure this out. Like, I can't keep doing this. I'm like working split shifts. I have 12 clients a day. I'm personal training. I'm teaching 12 classes a week. I'm waking up at 4:15. I'm getting home at night at 9 o'clock. I want to build this business. I could not literally physically continue burning the candle at both ends. So I had a lot of motivation to figure it out. Then, like Brendan said, you get some success. You're like, I'm not in misery anymore. I'm not in that constant, like, miserable place anymore. I'm kind of good, kind of in a holding pattern. And what I see is a lot of people stay there. And I definitely stayed there for a long time. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's definitely comfortable, and it's definitely more certain, and it's definitely more complacent. So in order for me to get the activation energy, right, to like actually want to do something else and be in a growth phase again, I knew it was going to be some output, and I knew that there was going to be some buffering that needed to happen. And so every year we're learning and we're getting better at these things. And I'm learning about myself and getting better at these things. So you need to walk your walk, and you need to refill your cup. Remember what you said you wanted and trust the process. Remember what you said you wanted and trust the process. And what I mean by that is, like I said to myself, Jill, this is a growth phase. You know that you want to scale this year. You know you're taking on team. You know you're doing this stuff. So you have to remember when it's tough, when you're in those moments where things are tough, and it's a lot, Like I told you, like November 30th, when I got on that plane to Australia, I was literally like white knuckling it. I was like, I just need to sleep for like 2 weeks straight. And I need to just have nothing on my calendar. I need to like read fiction and like lie on the beach, right? That's how I felt. Now, of course, that didn't last for 3 weeks. It only lasted about a week, but that feeling anyway. But I had to remember that I asked for this, right? Jill, this is part of the process. So you have to have the awareness and recognize and then trust that, yes, you always have a say, right? I could definitely blame and complain and be like, what the fuck? And this is too much and I can't do this and whatever. Or I could just be like, wow, I'm way more drained than I thought I was going to be, right? It's like when you sit down at a buffet and you put so much stuff on your plate and we say that our eyes are bigger than our stomach. It's kind of the same thing, right? We put our launch calendar together. I'm like, I'm excited. And then like when you get into the weeds, you're like, wow, this is really taking a lot out of me. And so then you have to recognize that this is part of the growth process and adjust moving forward. You can't change 2022. 2022 was our best year ever, but it definitely was a lot of output. 2021 and 2022 were tons of output because we're doing a lot of different things, a lot of new things. And remember, anytime you're doing something new, it's going to be cumbersome because you're just not good at it yet, or it's going to feel clunky. So next year, and every single launch that we do have gotten smoother and smoother and smoother. We kind of have like we kind of joke at JillFit, like when we go live and card is open, we all like sort of hold our breath because we're like, we hope everything works. And then it's like, okay, we're talking to Sarah, did anyone email in? Do you get any DMs, anything breaking, like whatever? And like, it's sometimes that happens, but for the most part, it doesn't anymore, but it certainly used to. And so again, we're getting better, we're getting better. So trust the process and trust that it's what you wanted. And then go, okay, now I recalibrate based on the new information, right? Based on this intel and this new information that I've gathered as a result of doing the thing I said I wanted. Wanted to scale. Wow, it was a lot of output. Cool. How do we adjust moving forward? How do we continue to work at this capacity, but do it in a way that saves our sort of mental, emotional bandwidth as well? And lastly, and this is really important, I think you guys probably glean this, but you need a lot of time and space to do creative work. So, as business owners, we're not just robots. When I was a personal trainer, I was essentially a robot. Like to me, it's not that I didn't have fun programming my clients, and I love my clients, but I pretty much was like, boom, 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 12 clients a day, 12 fitness classes a week. Like, what's my schedule? I had this one calendar that I made because there wasn't even a calendar I could buy on like in a store that would give me enough time slots for what I needed. Like other ones were like just had hourly. I made my own Excel spreadsheet that was broken down into 15-minute chunks. I had written out like how much, okay, I'm going to eat my chicken and broccoli. That's going to be 15 minutes. I'm going to drive from my house to work. That's 15 minutes. Like this shit was like, it was every single time slot on every single day was X'd out. And I liked it at the time, right? Because it's checking shit off a list. It's a to-do list. It feels productive. The problem was I was really busy, but I wasn't productive. And I wasn't doing any creative work. If you've ever been someone who works in the gym or your trainer or coach or see people across the desk, and you see a lot of people and a lot of patients, like that's a different way of working than creating social media posts and writing email and writing sales pages and coming up with ideas, idea generation. Totally different skill set, totally different way of working. So sometimes it's funny because my partner, Keith, like he'll get home. He works 24-hour shifts. He's a paramedic firefighter here in LA. And he'll be like, how was your day? And I'm like, good. I was like, I worked for like, I don't know, I wrote a bunch of stuff. And he's like, cool. But like to him, that's not a lot of work really, because it's like a couple hours of like writing. But I'm like, you don't understand. It's like so, I don't say it's draining. It's just so cerebral, right? It takes so much mental energy. And so when you have that way of working, you need a lot of time and space. And it's really about balancing the inputs with the outputs. So I just shared with you that the last 4 months, we did 4 launches in 4 months. That's a lot of output, right? It's a lot of emails I have to write. It's a lot of sales pages I had to perfect. It's a lot of messaging I had to think about. It's a lot of social media posts I had to create and publish, right? It's a lot of conversations I had to have. All that stuff, that's output, 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 output. Now, you can't just continue to put out without getting inputs. So when I go on vacation, it really is about not only filling up my sort of mental, emotional cup, but my creative cup. So I'm reading different books. I'm reading fiction. I'm reading personal development books. I'm reading books for fun, right? I'm listening to different podcasts. I'm putting different things, having different conversations. The day is going slower. I have more time to think about things. I'm not rushing off to a client. And you have to think about this. I call it time padding, right? So when I was a personal trainer, I had all my clients right in a row. Literally 7:15, 7:45, 8:15, 8:45, 9:15, 9:45. I have 7 clients in a row every 30 minutes in the morning, and then I come back and do it again at night. And that is like boom, 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 right? Time padding means, gosh, if I have to write a social media post, or if you guys are doing like reels or TikToks, doing Shantae and I have been talking a lot about, she's doing some more YouTube videos. It takes a lot more time. If you think somebody's going to take 30 minutes, make sure you allot 90 minutes for it. Not only because of the time it takes, it's not just writing the post, it's thinking and editing and adding and changing and thinking some more and referencing, right? It's all of these things. So you need time pads. It can't just be like, boom, social media post in 20 minutes. Sometimes those days are great, but for the most part, you need to give yourself the time and space, and don't let anyone tell you that that's not also working, just a different way of working. And sometimes if you live with someone who is in a corporate job or has a traditional job, goes to, to a desk job potentially, they might not understand. They're like, wait, you just wrote stuff all day and that was work, right? Or you had 3 Zoom calls that were an hour. How is that a full day? But you might be completely drained, right? And so it's not that you're lazy, or it's not that you're not doing a lot. It's literally just that because of the level of the cerebral output that you have to do in its creative time, totally different way of working and way more fucking draining than just checking shit off a list of tasks, right? So don't forget that. That was a big thing for me. And I came back. I was so creative. I have a million fucking ideas for the podcast. I have a million ideas for different emails I want to do. I wrote a ton of emails while I was there. I literally just feel so filled up from a creative perspective. And that was one of the biggest takeaways, and something I desperately need, especially after all the output over the last few months. So those were some of my lessons. And it was interesting to see some of them that I was like, I kind of knew ahead of time. And then other ones that like kind of slapped me in the face. And I was like, oh, okay. Yep. Maybe won't do this again. It's all just information. It's all just data to be like, cool. Do I want to do this again? And the answer is probably no. Now I probably will sort of do a light December, continue to do a light December, but I'll probably, if I do vacation, I'll probably be 2 weeks. 3 weeks was a little bit too long. And so just a good lesson to learn. And also, don't let someone tell you that you're a workaholic. If you love what you're doing, then it doesn't drain you all the time, right? There's moments where you feel completely excited. You feel like completely jacked up. If you've ever done like a webinar, or done a coaching call, or ran a masterclass, it's like you get off and you're like on a high. And so don't let anyone tell you that you're a workaholic because you love to work, right? If you love to work and you would rather be working, and you'd rather be working because you miss it, not because you have to, then that's great. And that's your experience, and that's totally valid. Good. All right, guys. Last thing I want to remind you is that we are getting ready to enroll for the next round of FBA. FBA stands for Fitness Business Accelerator, is my beginning to business course, beginner to business course for health and fitness professionals who want to start and grow their online business. We are getting to going to be enrolling this coming spring. However, we are doing something very special we've never ever done for everyone who's interested and who wants to enroll early. So make sure you're on the wait list. Go to jillfitfree.com/FBA-waitlist. It's jillfitfree.com/FBA-waitlist. To get on the waitlist, it's 100% just not obligated. If you're on there, it's just for informational purposes, and you'll get all the details before anyone else, and a exclusive discount as well to join us for the next round. So that's it for you guys. Hopefully you have hope you learned something today, and hopefully you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye guys.